The hum of the air conditioner filled the room as I sat alone, surrounded by memories that had begun to feel like distant echoes. Amelia and I had weathered life's storms together, or so I thought. Lately, though, a cloud of doubt lingered, casting shadows on the life we had built. It all started with the subtle changes in her routine, the frequency of her business trips rising like an unsettling tide. One evening, as the amber hues of sunset painted our living room, I hesitated by the doorway. Amelia was on the phone, her voice hushed and distant. "Yes, of course, I understand," she murmured, her eyes avoiding mine. The once familiar laughter that used to dance in her eyes had been replaced by a guarded look. It was a moment etched in my memory, the moment when the shadows of doubt first began to creep in. Later that night, I broached the subject gently, hoping for reassurance. "Amelia, is everything okay? You've seemed a bit distant lately," I said, my voice carrying a note of concern. She smiled, a fleeting expression that failed to reach her eyes. "It's just work, Henry. Pressure has been mounting and you know how it is." But work pressure didn't explain the changes in her appearance. Once content in her jeans and t-shirt, she now stood in front of the mirror, choosing outfits with a deliberation I hadn't seen before. Her once carefree ponytail was often let loose, and her evenings were now spent at the local gym, a new fascination that puzzled me. One night, as we lay side by side, the gulf between us widening, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Amelia, talk to me. What's going on?" I asked, my voice a mix of frustration and longing. She sighed, her eyes avoiding mine. "It's just a phase, Henry. I need something different, a change." The fabric of trust, woven over 2 decades, now felt strained. "A change," I repeated, the weight of the unspoken hanging in the air. Little did I know this was just the beginning of a story that would unfold in shadows of doubt. The air hung heavy with anticipation in the dimly lit office of the private investigator. My pulse quickened as he slid a set of photographs across the table, each one revealing a truth I had desperately tried to deny. Amelia, my partner of 2 decades, was entangled with a stranger named Mason in the most intimate of ways. "Mr. Henry," the investigator spoke, a gruff tone underscoring his words. "These were taken over the past few weeks. Your wife and this man Mason seem to be more than just acquaintances." I couldn't tear my eyes away from the images that shattered the illusion of my marriage. Amelia's laughter, once reserved for our shared moments, now echoed in the arms of a man I didn't recognize. Anger, betrayal, and heartache intertwined as I whispered, "Who is this Mason? What does he have that I don't?" The investigator leaned back, studying my face with a discerning gaze. "Seems like a well-off individual. Younger, affluent, maybe connected to her work, given the frequency of these rendezvous." A lump formed in my throat as the truth sunk in. The woman I had built a life with was leading a secret existence. I forced out a question, my voice strained. "How did you find out about them?" The investigator leaned forward, his eyes meeting mine. "I've been tailing her as per your request. It wasn't easy, but I've uncovered enough evidence to confirm your suspicions." Silence hung in the room like a heavy fog. The weight of betrayal bore down on me, and I muttered a shaky, "Thank you." The investigator nodded, understanding the storm of emotions within me. As I left his office, the photographs clutched in my hand. The city outside seemed unfamiliar, the streets a maze of shadows mirroring the darkness that had enveloped my heart. The unraveling secrets demanded answers, and the journey into the unknown had just begun. The days following the revelation of Amelia's affair were a blur of conflicting emotions and sleepless nights. It was during this time that a decision took root within me, a decision to wear a mask of normalcy while plotting a slow, meticulous revenge against the man responsible for tearing my world apart. One evening, as Amelia scrolled through her phone, oblivious to my internal turmoil, I mustered a smile. "How was your day, love?" The word love felt like a lie on my lips, but the mask needed to be convincing. She glanced up, her eyes betraying a hint of guilt before she composed herself. "Just the usual, Henry. You know how it is at work." The once familiar exchange felt hollow, like a scripted dialogue in a play whose ending I already knew. In the solitude of our home, I delved into the life of Mason, the intruder in our marriage. The mask of normalcy became my shield as I gathered information about his vulnerabilities, the cracks in his facade that would serve as the foundation for my revenge. One night, as Amelia returned from her newly acquired fitness routine, I attempted a casual conversation. "You seem to enjoy the gym lately. Is it helping with the stress?" She nodded, a distant look in her eyes. "It's a nice distraction, Henry. Helps me clear my mind." I forced a smile, concealing the storm brewing within. Whatever helps, Amelia. We all need an escape sometimes. Little did she know, my escape involved a meticulous plan to dismantle the life of the man she had chosen over our 2 decades of shared history. As I continued to play the role of the loving and unsuspecting husband, the mask became more than a facade, it became a second skin. The smile never faltered, conversations flowed effortlessly, and all the while, the wheels in my head turned, devising a course of action that would serve justice in my own way. In the silence of our home, the mask of normalcy concealed the storm within, and I knew that the time for revenge was drawing near. In the dimly lit study, surrounded by the glow of computer screens, I meticulously wove the strings that would soon bind Mason's fate to my hands. The strings of control tightened as I strategically purchased portions of his company's debt, becoming an unsuspecting puppeteer behind the scenes. One evening, as Amelia prepared dinner in the adjacent room, I received an email confirmation of my latest acquisition. The cold glow of the computer screen reflected in my eyes as I muttered to myself, every bond, every IOU, every bank loan, they are slowly becoming mine. Amelia entered the room, an apron wrapped around her, a facade of normalcy painted on her face. Henry, is everything okay? You've been working late these days, she asked, a hint of concern in her voice. I closed the laptop, masking the weight of my actions. Just business, love. You know how it is, I replied, forcing a smile. The dichotomy of our conversations felt surreal. The woman I had once confided in, now an unwitting pawn in the game I was orchestrating. As the days passed, I continued my assault on Mason's financial lifelines, using shell corporations and anonymous accounts. The strings of control became my tools, and with each calculated move, I gained a firmer grip on the sinking ship of his once thriving company. One evening, as Amelia perused a magazine on the couch, I spoke, my voice calm. I've been thinking, Amelia, maybe we should plan a vacation, take some time off. Her eyes met mine, a flicker of surprise breaking through her carefully constructed demeanor. That sounds nice, Henry. A break would do us good. Little did she know the vacation was not a gesture of reconciliation. It was a precursor to the final act of revenge I had meticulously planned. As I sat alone in the study, surrounded by the remnants of my calculated actions, the strings of control were ready to be pulled. The puppet show was about to begin, and Mason, unknowingly dancing on the strings I had woven, was on the verge of his ultimate downfall. The symphony of corporate catastrophe played out with a crescendo of chaos. In the shadows, I pulled the strings of Mason's once thriving startup, orchestrating a downfall that reverberated through the corridors of his dreams. Each move I made, carefully calculated, contributed to the unraveling of the tech visionary's world. One morning, as Amelia sipped her coffee at the breakfast table, the news on the television echoed through the room. Mason's company facing a financial crisis. The anchor announced, a smirk betraying the vulture-like delight in sharing a man's demise. Amelia looked up, her eyes narrowing in concern. Henry, have you heard about this? I feigned surprise, a mask of innocence carefully crafted. No, love, I hadn't. Must be tough for him, I replied, a calculated sympathy in my voice. As the days unfolded, the avalanche gained momentum. The media, once enamored by Mason's entrepreneurial success, now feasted on the juicy details of his failing leadership. Amelia, unaware of the orchestration behind the scenes, watched the grand spectacle unfold, oblivious to the role I played in scripting the downfall of her secret lover. One evening, as we sat in the living room, she spoke, her voice tinged with concern. Henry, it's been all over the news. Mason's company is in shambles. Have you ever worked with him? I sighed, casting a melancholic glance towards the television. No, Amelia. Business is a tough game. Sometimes even the best crumble under the pressure. The conversation, veiled in normalcy, masked the storm brewing within me. In the solitude of my study, the glow of computer screens mirrored the glaring light of financial news networks. I pulled strings here, nudged levers there, using my business acumen to craft a symphony of corporate catastrophe. The stock of Mason's company plummeted, and with it, his dreams, his hopes, and most importantly, his appeal. As Amelia continued to watch the unfolding drama, I knew the time for the final act of revenge was drawing near. The unraveling symphony had reached its peak, and I, the unseen conductor, held the power to bring it all crashing down. The stage was set for the grand finale of my revenge, a revelation that would shatter the illusion Amelia had crafted around her clandestine affair. One evening, the air in our home thick with tension, I summoned the courage to unveil the truth that would forever alter the course of our lives. Amelia, we need to talk, I spoke, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil that had plagued me for months. She looked up from her book, a mask of casual indifference failing to hide the shadows of anxiety in her eyes. "What's wrong, Henry?" she inquired, feigning innocence. I took a deep breath, the weight of the impending revelation pressing on my chest. "I know about Mason, about your affair," I declared, my words hanging in the air like an unspoken truth. Her eyes widened, the mask slipping for a moment before she composed herself. "I don't know what you're talking about," she retorted, her voice laced with defiance. I reached into the pocket of my metaphorical mask, pulling out the photographs that had unveiled her secret. Sliding them across the table, I watched as recognition dawned in her eyes. "These tell a different story, Amelia. A story of betrayal and deceit." I stated, my tone unwavering. For a fleeting moment, silence reigned in the room. The air was thick with unspoken words, the weight of revelation hanging between us like an impenetrable fog. Amelia finally spoke, her voice a shaky whisper. "Henry, I didn't mean for this to happen." But apologies held no weight in the face of the devastation she had wrought upon our shared history. "It's too late for apologies, Amelia. What's done is done," I replied, a cold determination in my eyes. As the truth sank in, the realization of her actions and the impending consequences enveloped Amelia. She attempted to justify, to apologize, but her words fell on deaf ears. The revelations echoed around the room, empty and meaningless against the backdrop of the aftermath they left in their wake. The divorce proceedings commenced, the legal battleground where the remnants of our shared life were dissected and distributed. As the judge questioned us, I maintained my composure, securing favorable terms while Amelia was left with minimal assets. In the aftermath, the news of our divorce spread like wildfire. Friends, family, and colleagues offered their advice and support, unaware of the intricate web of revenge that had led us to this point. Amelia, left with the consequences of her choices, seemed to accept the inevitable, her once vivid dreams reduced to shards of shattered fantasy. The final blow, the culmination of my revenge, came as the judge granted the divorce. Amelia, stripped of alimony, clung to a few assets, a stark contrast to the life she had envisioned with Mason. The symphony of betrayal and revenge had reached its crescendo, leaving behind a broken ensemble of lives forever altered. As Amelia left, the echoes of our shared history fading away, I knew that the curtain had fallen on this chapter of my life. The man she had left me for, once seen as a dream, was now penniless, his reputation in tatters. Amelia, severed from the ties that once bound us, sold the awarded assets and disappeared into the void. In the final email I sent her, I wrote, "I may not come back with an update about Mason." The revenge had been served, the closure obtained, and as the echoes of betrayal dissipated, I stood alone in the silence of a life rebuilt on the ruins of the past. Thank you for listening to the story to the end, and if you like it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you